Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan.
I'm James.
And I'm Callum.
And tonight we are talking Pet Sematary, Cowboy Bebop, and much more.
Yes, so stick around for our... Stick around. Most people are listening on the podcast. Stick around for our Pet Sematary review later. But first, a few things I want to talk about. One thing I want to mention, last week we did a deep dive into the episode 9 trailer.
I've just recovered.
Yeah, it was exhausting.
Should be called The Rise of My Blood Pressure.
Yeah. As much as we rambled on about it, or as much as I rambled on about it, there are a few points that I missed that I just want to mention. But let's not make it a discussion, because I know our listeners...
That's okay. Just ramble your points off and then we'll move on.
Yeah, our listeners can't handle it, so I'll just quickly ramble through the top points. So the desert planet that we suspected it is either Jakku or Tatooine, forgot to talk about how it's also possibly Jeddah, that planet in Rogue One, which apparently is a sort of Force mecha, which I don't think is well explained in Rogue One. I haven't seen that movie in quite a while. It's mostly the supplementary material that explains that. But it would be interesting if they revisit that, whether Rey goes there to find her kyber crystal or whatever. But I don't think J.J. Abrams has any nostalgia for Jeddah, so it's probably more likely to be Tatooine or Jakku. That really dumb-looking alien that was on the poster, that was so bad we thought this definitely has to be fake.
It was real.
Turns out that is 100% definitely real, and it features in the movie. Like, it is a character in the movie. I don't know what it's called, but it's a big yellow slug.
Much disappointment.
I couldn't believe it. I can't believe how bad they're mismanaging this. The character we talked about in the poster reveal, or the character reveal, Janna, the one who was had the bow and arrow. We were talking about how the bow and arrow doesn't make sense, and why these characters. There's a character with an axe, and maybe they're less advanced. Advanced civilization. It looks like, I think there's been some more like photos of Janna and some of the other characters, and it looks like they might be part of like a small band of resistance fighters. So after Last Jedi, after the First Order somehow took over the whole galaxy in a day, and then destroyed all of the resistance who were all on one ship.
Which they celebrate.
Yeah, which they celebrate at the end of Last Jedi. Doesn't make any sense.
Let's not go too far into this, otherwise.
Thank you, Nathan.
Okay.
But anyway, so the sort of raggedy-looking bow and arrow, axe-wielding characters might just be resistance fighters who, at this point, have been pushed back to like completely. There's like no technology.
Yeah, like the Stone Age.
Yeah. Which would be interesting if that was introduced in the second movie and not the last movie. Also, there's been rumors that Janna is Lando's daughter. She also wears a yellow shirt, if that doesn't mean anything. But
I mean,
why not?
Yeah, but at this point, why not? And also, I guess it makes sense that Lando returns as this sort of resistance leader. Maybe he's like one of the last resistance leaders after they killed everyone off.
It's kind of an easy link for people to reach, since there's not that much representation in a galaxy far away.
True, yeah.
So I think maybe people are just kind of quick to leap on that. And say, she's probably Lando's daughter because he's the only other person.
But even then,
could be a long lost daughter of Mace Windu.
It's true.
Equally as possible.
Any possibility is as bad. Anything they do is the wrong choice.
Yeah.
And also we talked about how Rian Johnson wrote one draft, and how at least J.J. Abrams wrote a couple that we know of, even though that ended up being terrible. The bad thing is that Rise of Skywalker is being co-written by Chris Terrio, who's responsible for co-writing the Batman vs. Superman and Justice League screenplays.
Two of our favourite films.
So, yeah, as if we didn't have high hopes before, now it's just...
by the geniuses who bought you.
Yeah, by Oh God.
Oh dear.
Anyway, that's it for that. Sorry to all our listeners.
Dear.
It's just there was those points that I needed to mention. We also a couple weeks ago talked about Shazam, and how we were talking about the Black Adam solo film. We weren't sure when that was coming out or how that was going to turn out. But The Rock, who has been involved with the Shazam movie since forever, and was cast as Black Adam like 5 years ago. He's a producer on Shazam, and so he's always involved in the behind the scenes. And he made a video talking about how much he liked the Shazam and how much he appreciated it doing well. And he also said that filming for the Black Adam solo film is going to be in a year. So I don't know.
We have a date, I guess.
Whether that happens, whether it gets pushed back, whether it gets moved forward. I don't think he mentioned a script at all, but Black Adam at the moment.
Well, they didn't have a script for Skyscraper, so.
Yeah. Well, they did, but it was written on a bar napkin.
We'll see what happens.
But yeah, so Black Adam possibly shooting in a year's time.
Somewhat exciting,
That's
I
at
suppose.
least some sort of a time frame there.
Yep.
All right. Should we move on to the Cowboy Bebop casting?
Yes.
News?
Yes. It's always hard to cast live action actors for an anime.
Yeah.
Because anime is so stylized.
Exactly.
It's hard to get it right.
Yeah. I mean, anyone they choose would be under very hard scrutiny from fans.
The only real choice for Spike, for me, was Keanu Reeves. He was perfect.
He was the fan favorite, I guess.
As a younger man, I'm not sure how he'd pull it off as an older man.
Oh, you could do it.
Well, yeah, Spike's pretty a young character from memory, but I mean, Keanu's kind of ageless.
Yeah, exactly.
He could pull it off, I guess.
The problem is they,
but also,
what I remember,
go on.
They did want to push on accurate diversity casting, if you want to call it that. But the problem is, of course, they chose John Cho, who we all like John Cho.
Oh yeah,
but he's not. Spike as a character is tall and lanky, and he's got a. Who's he based on? There's an actual guy Spike was physically based on. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but
Elliot Gould?
Well, basically,
yeah.
But John Cho is not this man.
Yeah,
he's a smaller gentleman.
It's also, I mean, ties into how we're talking about Keanu Reeves' age. John Cho is 46.
Yeah, exactly. He's no spring chicken himself.
Exactly.
That's true.
So, I mean, I don't know. I'm happy for an Asian guy to play Spike, because Spike is, in fact, Asian.
I'm pretty sure we talked about this quite a while back, but Keanu Reeves is half Chinese, so it's not, completely... But I think when we did talk about that, Callum made the good point that Keanu is sort of... What's the word? He's seen as white.
He passes as...
In a sort of... Because he's a non-offensive... he's a fan favorite. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but
I'm not explaining it well.
Is he half Chinese or half Hawaiian?
He's half Hawaiian Chinese.
Okay, yeah. So the thing about Keanu is his white genes come through very dominantly. So no. When you look at him on screen, and when you see him in person,
it's hard to explain. You have to write
gentleman.
It's you have to write an essay to explain it. But it's Will Smith is a safe black actor.
Yes.
When you cast Will Smith, the general audience don't see him as the scary black guy that scares us,
That's right. He's Will Smith, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Will Smith. And Keanu Reeves is kind of the same. He's not the half Asian guy. He's Keanu Reeves. Everyone loves him.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of casting, but also he is Asian. So...
But he's also very much a chameleon. He can do any kind of role, and he can play almost anyone.
Apart from a black role.
Any type.
He's not a chameleon, I wouldn't say, but he can do comedy, he can do action, he can do drama. But I wouldn't call him a chameleon actor.
Not an ethnically chameleon. He's not ethnically chameleon.
Why is anyone ethnically?
No, but
isn't that one of the problems?
Robert Downey Jr. is pretty diverse ethnic chops.
That's true. They should have got Robert Downey Jr. to play Spike. This would have solved all the problems.
No, but I'm sorry to derail that. My point is that. Keanu Reeves would have been good in the role just because he could embody
the
physicality of the role.
Yeah, he also has martial arts experience and action movie experience, which John Cho kind of has a little bit because of Star Trek, I guess. But other than that, like, he's not seen as a physical actor. But yeah, like, I think this also, like, I really like John Cho. I think he's a great actor.
But he's not right for the role.
Yeah, but Spike is like the epitome of cool.
Yeah.
It's Keanu Reeves.
And John Cho, when he doesn't strike me as cool. You know, now, he's an actor, he can put that on.
Yeah, but I'm
pretty sure he played the cool guy in what was that movie that Justin Lin made? Better Luck Tomorrow. He's like the cool guy. You know, like, he can play
but
cool.
He plays the family man 90% of the time. Like, that sort of safe...
In the last few years, yeah probably.
Let's not forget he played John Cho, are we talking?
Yeah.
He played
Kumar.
Cool in American Pie as well.
I don't even know who played. I haven't seen those movies since I was like 12.
Don't worry.
I don't think those movies hold up.
Oh, no, they do.
Do they?
You know what? Maybe not in today's era.
No, they're timeless.
We'll watch it. We'll watch it and do a Tuesday review breakdown.
I don't think in the era of Me Too, I don't think American Pie holds up.
But even in the non-Me Too era,
I think it's just a little bit
rewatching those movies is like don't hold up just comedy wise. But anyway, what was I talking about? Yeah, John Cho. Just in terms of the martial arts, physical side, not too sure. In terms of the coolness, he's an actor. He can pull it off. I've seen him play cool roles before, but you don't get that Keanu sense of like, that guy's cool.
You know, it's like, as I said, there's a physicality to it. It's that kind of
it's like effortless.
You know how Cowboy Bebop is bebop.
Yeah,
it's obviously it's in the name. It's like jazz, or it's like jazz influenced.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah,
it's like
Western.
It's almost like the way Spike moves. Example, it's kind of it's that rhythmic kind of stride.
And that's again when you translate an anime to live action, that's dangerous because you lose a lot of that physicality.
Yeah,
that kind of otherworldly. Stylized way of moving his body that you can't really get in live action, even from a really talented performer. And
now I'm not too familiar with the rest of the casting, so if you could just help us out.
We'll go through that now. Mustafa Shakir is playing Jet, who's, I guess, a okay choice. I've only seen him in season 2 of Luke Cage, where he played the Bushmaster, he was really good in that. So I think he could pull it off. Jet's a character who, I guess, he's an older sort of character.
Is Jet an African American gentleman in the show, in the original anime show, or?
I don't think so. Like, because it's anime, you can play with the sort of.
It's not as clear cut.
No, I thought it was interesting that they kind of made it a priority to ethnically cast Spike.
Yeah,
but then played fast and loose with some of the other characters. I was like, I understand that.
Yeah,
but also if you're gonna make like if you're gonna cast on ethnic lines for Spike, at least make it accurate.
But it's also not as clear.
Yeah, we talked about this quite a while ago in the old show, where it's like. I see most of the Cowboy Bebop characters as Western
Japanese
characters. No.
Sorry.
And I think some of them are explicitly stated to be Asian, but most of the time, like, and it's a whole discussion we can go on all night about. But it's like when Japanese audiences see anime characters, they see Japanese. And when Western audiences, unless it's made specifically,
I was going to bring that up because in a show where it's not as clear cut. When you're actually looking at the character, you put a lot of yourself into them.
Yeah.
But
it's also I also mentioned, when we're talking about this, how I only watch the English dub of Cowboy Bebop because the Japanese dub rubs me the wrong way.
And we are joined in the studio now by Callum, who is an avid anime fan.
I am. Thank you for having me.
Have you been following along with our discussion?
Yes, I have. I got triple trained, so while I was there, I was definitely listening in.
Oh, you got stuck at the crossing? Yes. I hope they get rid of that level crossing. It's the worst.
So, Alan, can we please have your take on the casting choices for Cowboy Bebop?
Returning from on high, the capital.
Yes. You shall call me Dr. Alan for now. Well, I've always been intrigued by it, and I think it's situational. Because, as you said before, Nathan, that if a Japanese audience watches the anime, they have that feel that all the characters are Japanese. Whereas we're like, they could very easily be American / Western.
Like Alan watches it, he assumes they're all Indians.
Yeah.
That was racist.
Wow.
I'm making the point that when we watch it, we impart ourselves in it, and we... How's it racist?
That was racist.
It wasn't.
It's very much situational. Like, I'm going to throw an example in of Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
The main protagonist in there is named Eren Yeager. Now, I don't know a single Japanese person with the name Eren Yeager.
Yeah.
But There's also one of the co-protagonists, I guess, is a female who's half Japanese, and they make that very clear. That her mother was specifically Japanese. When they did the live-action adaptation, however, everyone was Japanese.
Well, they did that with Fullmetal Alchemist, let us not forget, where they're explicitly European, because it's set on the European continent, and then the live-action was entirely Japanese cast running around Europe.
Still set in Europe. Still German characters, they're all Japanese.
Yeah, it's like, it kind of makes sense, because it's like, well, it's a Japanese production for a Japanese audience, so of course you're going to cast, because it would be weird if it was a Japanese production for a Japanese audience and they get European actors to come in, but it's going to be in Japanese because they're going to try to sell it in Japan. So, but yeah, it's a weird balance of like, do we stay true to the source material? Who are we making this for? And I think there's obviously a very big problem with like whitewashing and stuff in Hollywood and Western films, that they're definitely trying.
So it's almost a non-win situation, because using the logic that
in Japan they're probably like, who
they're
cares?
all Japanese.
Yeah, it's like they're all.
When we watch it, we think they're all Western characters unless it's explicitly stated.
Yeah.
If you're
but even then, it's
in Asia, they probably presume they're Asian characters unless explicitly stated.
Even then, it's like it's an adaptation. So like, I don't care if this Asian character is now white, but it's like it's like how like. It's because of the problem they have in Hollywood of like always casting white actors. And
no, but it's not so much about like the adaptation do what it wants, but from like a hardcore audience fan base of the anime, it's almost a no-win situation. Because there's always going to be a part of the sort of audience that are like, well, that's not how I envision the character.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
that's any adaptation.
I mean, as I was saying, so they seem to be casting along ethnic lines for Spike, which I don't see John Cho having any redeeming value for this film apart from his star power. His performance might be fine, but as far as Spike goes, he's not Spike. He'll never be Spike unless he wears platform shoes. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he's so not right for the role. Why couldn't they cast appropriately? Do you know what I mean? Like, well, the race of the actor doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
As long as it's more Spike.
I don't know.
What I mean? There's like a Spike.
We might be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But
I mean, it hasn't come out. We haven't seen it.
From first glance, his casting as Spike is not really ideal for us. I would like to see another Asian actor, one with perhaps more action, martial arts experience, more height.
Donnie Yen with platforms as well. We'll at least get the martial arts down.
Yeah, true. But yeah, so yeah, John Cho as Spike, Mustafa Shakir as Jet, Daniela Pineda as Faye, who, I mean, that's fine.
Whatever, we'll see.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on, I guess. And Alex Hassel as Vicious, which I don't really like this casting either.
And there's no Doggo casting?
No Doggo casting and no Ed casting.
They need to get the same dog that plays Cheddar on Brooklyn Nine-Nine as
yeah.
Is it a Corgi? I can't remember now.
More or less.
I think so.
Anyway, we'll talk about Ed in a minute, but Alex Hassel as Vicious is more probably the most troubling, because Vicious is Spike's kind of mortal enemy, arch nemesis. He's also, because it's an anime, again, this comes into any live action adaptation is going to be hard to adapt. But like, he's a kind of tall dude with like long blonde hair, and he's like kind of moody, and he's like a violent dude. His name's Vicious. I mean, come on. Yeah. And again, these people are actors, and there will be costume and hair and makeup involved, and it's too early to tell.
There could be some green screen.
I mean, it's Netflix, right? Yeah, it's Netflix, right? Yeah. So the budget, hopefully the budget will be like $300 million.
So this is way too early to tell. We're just, from our initial reaction, this is our initial casting reaction from being big fans of the anime. Yeah, I mean, Cowboy Bebop is like legit the best anime ever.
It probably is the best anime in general.
Yeah.
And one of the best science fiction stories out there.
You say that in front of Akira? How dare you?
Okay, I said Akira is the best movie.
I said one of the
Cowboy
best.
Bebop is the best series, okay? Can we have both?
We're about to start a fist fight here.
Can we have both? Porque no los dos. But yeah, like Alex Hassel as Vicious, not really what I had in mind at all. And yeah, Ed, there's no casting as yet for Ed, but I think that's going to be the hardest casting. Like, that's, we've been talking about how we're not really sure about this cast. that's going to be, when they cast it, it's going to be like, what the hell have they done? That's going to be very difficult. But yeah, it's not just the casting. Because it's an anime, it's very stylish, and because it's very music-based, the music is almost just as important, if not more important, than the casting. So I'm hoping to see, or to hear, a really amazing soundtrack that rivals the anime. And not only that, the special effects and the production design required for something like this, it's going to be difficult.
You know, I mean, I didn't have a problem with the production of Mute, for example. Now
I had some problems, but
there are Mute's not perfect.
Yeah.
But I think that Netflix have shown they can pull off hard sci-fi.
Well, Altered Carbon. So Netflix.
That's probably a better comparison.
Netflix has said this is going to be Cowboy Bebop's going to be a 10-episode live action series. And I guess Altered Carbon is the only other sort of similar science fiction series from Netflix that we can compare it to. But I think Cowboy Bebop's much more ambitious and just has a lot more going on than Altered Carbon. Altered Carbon had a lot of sort of revisiting the same places, mostly took place around the same area. Same planet even.
Yeah.
Whereas Cowboy Bebop, it's more of an adventure show. They go to different planets, they go to different cities. There are spaceships involved, space travel. So I think the budget-wise, it's going to be more difficult, and just production design-wise, they're going to have to do a lot to differentiate the places and to show them traveling.
I think Netflix has the chops, especially when it comes to TV shows. That's where they
definitely
shine.
Like Netflix is the perfect place for this. So yeah, we'll stay posted.
We'll wait. I want to wait until we see some like promotional posters
it's
or
just
some
too,
teasers.
It's just too early to tell.
But one thing that surprised me that came out this week, slightly changing the subject, where I'm talking about like high budget Netflix productions, is apparently we will see The Witcher by the end of 2019.
Yes,
on
I
Netflix.
forgot about that. They said it's going to come out.
And speaking of difficult casting too, I want to see exactly how he stands up as Geralt.
Yeah, Henry Cavill
is as our boy.
Yeah, like when he cast, I was like, I don't not like him. But
I mean, yeah,
he's not what we had in mind.
He's not right for Geralt, but he's a super fan.
Is he?
He is. Apparently, he's played all the games. He's read all the books.
I know he said he read all the books, which this series is based off the books and not the games.
But yeah, apparently he's all about that.
Yeah.
So at least he'll be enthusiastic.
I mean, in terms of his casting, I'd personally prefer my boy Mads Mikkelsen.
Well, he was he was like the fan favorite.
But we'll see.
It's like way too early.
It's way too early to tell. But this one is closer.
We just like talking shit before anything comes out,
and after, and during,
and during and after, and decades later when no one cares anymore.
But no, for real, I think The Witch is exciting because at least they have enthusiasm for it. I'm just not sure if Henry Cavill's the right choice.
Yeah,
but
and that's another show that production wise is going to be a lot of money and a lot of production.
And this is their Game of Thrones killer. This is like the next, because Game of Thrones is over after this season.
Yeah, well then there's the
spin-offs, but
yeah.
They'll probably maintain some of that momentum, but the Netflix can capitalize on
like
that market.
The new kid on the block.
It's like the new adult-orientated, high fantasy sort of show.
Yeah, which there's not a lot of other than Game of Thrones.
No, so Netflix has really timed this perfectly.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see. Netflix, they can pull it off. It's just we'll have to wait and see.
So there's a lot of good science fiction and fantasy coming out on Netflix, but it's way too early to tell really at this stage.
Perfect for us,
Yeah, we love speculation.
Yeah, speculation, and we love sci-fi and fantasy. So
speculation keeps the show going.
The more the better. We did the whole 2 hours on speculation. Is it speculation if you're always right?
Well, yes, it is speculation.
Prediction, yeah.
It is speculation.
Prophecy.
I was going to say, it could also be called prophecy.
We'll see at the end of the year. All right, should we move on to Pet Sematary?
Yes, we should.
That's with an S.
Yeah, the old Pet Semet. So before starting, I just want to say, don't watch the trailer for the new Pet Sematary if you want to see it, because it spoils everything. It's one of those annoying trailers that just shows you the whole movie and gives away all the twists.
Like Ma's house.
Ma,
Or Ma.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we saw that trailer when we're seeing Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure we watched the whole movie.
Yeah, I've seen the whole movie.
I've
seen the whole movie twice now.
Yeah, we saw Ma trailer before the last couple of movies we've seen, and we saw the whole movie twice. So, but yeah, Pet Sematary, if you're for some reason going to watch it, don't watch the trailer. So Pet Sematary...
Don't even watch the movie. No.
Well, we'll get to that. So it's based on the 1983 novel by Stephen King, the one and only. And King himself says that it's the scariest book he's ever written. So,
from what I understand, he meant that in terms of the way themes are presented in the book are very heavy.
Yeah.
And now, granted, that might be heavy in 80s terms.
Yeah.
But I think he's probably correct. I know some people on Reddit, for example, like, I couldn't even make it through the book, so it was so disgusting. I think some of the details about certain deaths are very graphic in detail.
Yeah, because of a lot of the themes and what it deals with. That's probably where a lot of the scares come from. So it's about after relocating his wife and 2 children to a small town, Dr. Lewis Creed discovers a mysterious burial ground hidden in the woods near the family's new home. When tragedy strikes, Lewis turns to his unusual neighbor, Judd Crandall, setting off a perilous chain of events with mystical and horrific consequences.
Sounds spooky.
Yeah. I think most people have heard of Pet Sematary, right? Like, even if they've never seen it or don't know what it's about, like, they've heard the name.
Stephen King, number one.
It's like Stephen King.
Number
there
two,
was the 80s.
The 80s version.
Yeah.
He was big in the 80s.
Yeah. I mean, he's
still big now.
He's still big. He's had a modern day resurgence.
Oh, yeah, the last couple of years.
The last few years, but before that...
Yeah, he kind of had a slowdown in the 90s.
There was a slowdown. He's picked back up again.
Yeah, but now
there was at least a decade where there wasn't that much. He did a lot of B-movie. There was a lot of B-movie adaptations.
Where did it start? When did this new Stephen King craze start?
The new?
In terms of...
Like the more recent one?
Yeah, in terms of theatre.
Under the Dome?
No, in terms of the movies, I mean. Like the people starting to...
It's been a lot the last few years.
I mean, maybe it... In terms of mega popularity?
Yeah, like... There was it.
Oh, no, they had that John Cusack movie.
There was Castle Rock.
Room 413 or something?
1408.
Yeah, probably there.
That was over 10 years ago, though, I think.
That's the earliest, big budget, kind of big, blockbuster.
There's always been Stephen King adaptations.
Oh, they did Sell? They did Sell as well.
Yeah, but that was a straight to DVD, pretty much.
Oh, yeah, all right. John Cusack was in that one as well. Yeah, no one saw that one.
But it was like Samuel L. Jackson as well, yeah?
I think so.
Yeah, it was like a big cast, and it was like straight to DVD for you.
Sound like an old man. What year did Misery come out?
Like
90, I think. 1990, I think. But yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Alan likes that one.
It's good.
It is a good one.
But yeah, there's always been Stephen King adaptations throughout the years, but recently it's had a resurgence.
He's exploded.
Yeah.
Since it, I reckon, sort of bigger budget.
Streaming services now, and Netflix.
And he's got a few on Netflix too.
Yeah,
Gerald's Game,
1922. Yeah. So there's there's that resurgence. There was the 1989 Pet Sematary film adaptation, which is not bad.
We also had that Maximum Overdrive masterpiece.
Oh god! If we talked about all the Stephen King adaptations, we'll be here for 20 years.
He himself directed.
Oh god, he was
does he
high
remember?
He was so ripped on cocaine.
Yeah, he was.
Is that the truck one?
Yeah. He directed that one.
Yeah.
I do love the contrast though between the kind of things you can get from him. If you see It or something, like that, you're like or even Misery. It's like, damn, that's great writing. It's a great movie.
He's done a wide range of different stuff.
Why are these trucks doing this? What's going on?
But see, some of his great novels,
he can't remember writing.
Cujo and Pet Sematary, I'm pretty sure he was so high he doesn't remember writing them.
Oh yeah,
and they still came out.
Yeah,
pretty
Cujo,
good.
he can't remember writing Cujo.
Yeah.
People tell me it's my fault.
There's a myth that he was doing so much coke that he had to stuff cotton balls in his nostrils to stop him bleeding on his typewriter.
I believe that.
He's to his credit though, in his recent era,
to his credit, he's still alive.
He has written some absolute masterpieces in his late era.
Because he's sober now, but he still writes a novel, at least a novel a year, right?
Yeah,
pretty much, yeah.
And some of his later works are so good.
9 times out of 10,
and most of them are not
really
bad.
Good.
Yeah.
Like, people call him a pulp writer, but I think that's not fair.
No, he's one of the best.
Anyway, Pet Sematary.
Yeah,
widely regarded as one of his more influential novels.
Yeah, there was the 1989 movie adaptation, which was not bad. This version is not a remake, a readaptation of the novel. This version's directed by Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer, and stars Jason Clarke as Dr. Lewis Creed, the protagonist, Amy Seimetz as Rachel Creed, his wife, Jete Lawrence as Ellie Creed, their daughter, little Hugo and Lucas Lavoie as Gage Creed, their youngest son, and John Lithgow as Judd Crandall, their neighbour. So yeah, I think everyone, like I said, everyone kind of generally knows Pet Sematary, even if they've never seen it and don't know what it's about.
It's in popular culture.
The imagery of the cat... Yeah. I think people generally know about the cat.
You've seen the DVD. Like you've seen the VHS case.
Yeah, you've seen the case of the evil cat. My question is, I know you guys are cat lovers. I don't like cats. How do you tell if it's an evil cat or a good cat? Like, how do you
go to pet it?
That's very easy. All cats are evil.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's
all
like,
cats are evil, but not all cats are undead.
How do you know it's a zombie cat if it like?
You don't know that it's a zombie cat or not. You just got to pat it and pray.
It's like you just got to hope that this cat's not as evil as the other cats.
That's true.
But yeah, I think generally we all enjoyed the new Pet Sematary.
Yeah. I don't know about Alan, but we certainly thought it was not bad.
Alan, well, just give it.
I feel my biggest kind of criticism of the movie was I felt there wasn't enough meat on it.
Yeah.
That's basically the entire time I was feeling there was enough meat on it.
Yeah.
And we'll also go on to another thing that me and Daniel agreed on, but that's...
I'll talk about that later. So, yeah, I think mostly it wasn't terrible. It was okay. It was an effective thriller.
There was... I thought there was a fair bit of dread. Like, there's dread in the movie. It wasn't all jump scares.
Yeah.
To the movie's benefit for me. There was a few sort of jump scare gotcha moments, but
it doesn't rely on just the jump scare.
It starts to devolve into the jump scary stuff.
It does, but
for a while.
At least at the start, there's a little bit of just uneasiness that I liked.
Yeah,
because that's more effective to me than just like boo.
Yeah, usually when it's there's more than one adaptation of a book. I liked the new 2019 Pet Sematary more than the 89 version. Which usually it's the other way around. Usually it's like, oh, the 80s version's pretty good, and this new crappy cash grab is just that.
Star Wars.
Yeah. But in this case, I think this version just handles a few things a bit better than the 89 version, and has a few twists that differentiate it from the 89 version. But it has problems which we'll talk about how... it could have been a lot better. But overall, it's a decent thriller. A couple of scares. Decent performances.
I thought John Lithgow was quite good in the role.
John Lithgow's always good. I like Jason Clarke generally. He's pretty good.
Spoilers?
We'll do spoilers now.
Spoiler warning?
Spoiler
for
warning.
Pet Sematary.
Bam, bam, bam.
So...
Did you
I guess we'll hit the ground running.
Yeah.
The film essentially revolves around a doctor who moves to the country, ?
No, we've already... talked about
and it starts like it actually kind of like picks up pace when one of the children moves in front of a truck. It gets hit by a truck. I should say there is mystical stuff beforehand in which a patient dies in the university, I think. So Dr. Lewis Creed works at the university hospital, and he gets a patient who was hit by a car or whatever. Who then becomes a ghost and follows him around, which isn't really well... It's probably more well explained in the book.
Prior to the child getting hit by the truck, truck couldn't, as we know him in the anime world, the cat is the family cat.
Oh, yes, of course.
So this is what all kicks it off, is when the cat dies and he buries it in the old Indian burial ground, which they...
On Judd's recommendation.
Yeah. Which they very carefully try to not say Indian burial ground in the new movie. You know,
is it in the old one?
Is
it Indian burial ground? Okay.
Even in the novel, it's the old.
I haven't read the novel.
They explain. They do explain it as an Indian burial ground, but it's worded
they
very
say
carefully.
there's like a scene where he's researching on the computer and it says tribal lands or something.
Yeah,
but other than that, they don't really say it.
For me, that got confusing because once again, I haven't read the book.
I haven't read the book either, but just from watching the '89 version and from reading about the book,
it made sense to me that this land was held sacred or sort of it was powerful land before settlers arrived.
Yeah,
and they try to stay away from it.
I think this movie it explains the backstory and weaves in the supernatural elements better than the '89 version, but it still lacks a lot of explanation and justifying the character's actions, especially like Judd's justification for telling Lewis where to bury the cat and and then where he later buries his daughter. It's like I think they need to work on that more. I think
because why even waste the time and energy to bury a cat there?
It's like and they're climbing on rocks and going and it's like
just buy a new cat, man.
And in the '89 version, I was just like, why did he bother doing that? Like that makes no sense. In this version, they kind of like he says something like the grief makes you do weird things, and the burial ground, the pet cemetery calls to you. So there's like at least some sort of
it's implied that he's been there before.
Yeah,
and
there's some sort of bullshit supernatural explanation, but they needed to weave that in throughout the whole movie, so like everyone's actions just make more sense.
I get the feeling that John Lithgow's character, I forget his name,
Judd.
He's learned all these lessons before.
Yeah.
So why does he keep repeating them?
That's
a pedophile.
That's one.
I said it. I said it.
That's one. That's the thing I want to talk about. Is that in the novel? I haven't read it, but from what I understand, John Lithgow's wife dies, Judd's wife dies, and he buries her, and she comes back messed up, and he has to kill her. In the '89 movie, they don't talk about that, but they do talk about a guy a soldier who lived in a small town who came back from overseas and then died once he got back, and they buried him in the Pet Sematary, and then he came back to life, and then the town got together and killed him.
And the bull,
the what?
The bull, the buffalo rather. They came back into the town. Remember? It was just like an undead buffalo walking around the town. From the news clippings.
Oh, okay, yeah. I thought you meant in the movie.
I was like,
when did that happen?
No.
Yeah. Well, they actually do in the new movie. They have a little Easter egg for that soldier cameo thing. But anyway, what was I talking about? Yeah, so they kind of talk about how that there was someone who. So in the book and the '89 version, they talk about how they've buried someone in the Pet Sematary before, and they've come back to life, and it's been an abomination, and then that had to kill them. In the new movie, they mention Judd's wife Norma, but that's it.
Yeah,
they never bring it up again.
Other thing is Judd mentions that his pet dog.
Yeah,
I believe.
And then there's that as well. But I think they needed to mention, like, Norma should have been a bigger part of the movie, where Judd is like, I brought her back. I thought it would be different, but it wasn't. I had to kill her, whatever. He's like, and maybe that ties into the justification for him telling Lewis where the burial ground is, and how he has to deal with that and whatever. I think another problem is in the novel and in the '89 movie, when Lewis buries his kid and the kid comes back, he has to kill the kid. Like, that's his sort of punishment. Not punishment, but he has to deal with the loss of his child, and then brings the child back thinking things will be better, and then realizes his mistake and has to kill the child again, which is probably the worst thing a parent would ever have to do, which is, I guess, why Stephen King thinks his novel's so scary. But in this new version of the movie, they twist it where everyone dies and gets resurrected and they become a zombie family, which I think removes a lot of the moral lesson learning of these characters. Like, they don't have to learn anything if they all just die. And does that make sense?
Well, we joked it had a happy ending.
Yeah, it's like, they're all together. They're dead zombie evil people, but
they seem happy.
Yeah.
I would have been far more content if after his wife gets stabbed by the daughter.
Yeah.
she dies, and then he ends up having to kill the daughter, and that's kind of the end of it.
Yeah.
Where he's now left with just him and his son. If the movie had ended in that manner, I think I would have been far more content.
Yeah, and then he has to live with his mistake for the rest of his life.
The fact that he's now brought his daughter back, killed her, and also caused the death of his wife.
Yeah, and then he gets killed and turns into a zombie, and then at the end, they're going to kill the son as well. In the novel, in the 89 version, it's actually the son who dies. And so there's this little 3-year-old kid who comes back alive and, tries to kill his parents. Now, in the book, I can see why that would probably be terrifying, because the way you're reading it, the way a parent's worst nightmare comes to life and returns. But in live action, it doesn't really work when you've got a little kid with a knife going, hee, daddy, and, trying to kill him. I think what I liked about the 2019 version is that they change the kid who dies from the 3-year-old son to the 10 or 11-year-old daughter. That I didn't see coming. I guess I blocked the trailer from my memory, even though I just told everyone not to watch the trailer, because the trailer, I think, gives that away. But the original movie, it's like I thought they were setting up the son to die in the new version, and then they did a little twist, and it's actually the daughter who dies. I think this works a little bit better because she's a bit older.
A bit more lethal.
Yeah, and she's like a bit more, even though they have supernatural strength, it's a bit more believable that she can attack. And just
she has more agency than a 3-year-old.
Yeah, and visually it works better in the movie. But I still think reading it in a book versus seeing it in a movie is a completely different thing, and it's not really scary in the movie, especially when the daughter starts shit-talking the mum, she's like, ha, 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 like, it's not scary. That might have been scary back in the day, but now it's not scary. It's kind of becomes funny.
Edgelords aren't scary.
Yeah. Zombie edgelord kids aren't scary.
Because I think it would have been a lot more effective if the daughter was just like, I thought you loved me, why don't you love me? That kind of thing. Emotional blackmail in that situation, I think works better rather than as you said, the shit talk.
That's what I want to talk about, is how, like, this movie would be way better. Again, I haven't read the novel, so I don't really know how it works out, but this movie would be way better as, like, purely a psychological thriller about a guy whose kid comes back from the dead, and it's like, how do you deal with that? It's about grief. And there's grief in the movie, but then again, towards the end of the movie,
it's just it
starts to become a slasher kind of more jump scary, like, and the girls, like, the evil zombie girls trying to kill him, and they're fighting in the graveyard, and it's like
that whole scene, the whole mountainous cemetery region, is just way too dark.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's old man coming out of me, but I couldn't see what was going on.
This movie has some. When they get to the burial ground, there's some really bad, like, green screen, and, like, it's just really, really, like, digitally just dark.
Is that lovely storm going on in the background?
Yeah, the fake storm.
Ellen, did you have problems sort of, like, being content with what you're seeing in the nighttime scenes in the mountainous regions?
No, just like,
it's too dark.
Like, I can understand they want that fogginess to it, but you have to kind of. It's a diminishing returns where you're making it nice and eerie and stuff. Then you're just like, I can't see anything. I don't know what's going on. Am I supposed to be scared? Am I supposed to be?
It's a problem with a lot of modern movies where it's like, we have to make this darker, more realistic, and it's like, but they have to do it digitally, and they do it on a set with green screen, and it ends up just looking flat.
All right, hold the film. We got to turn up the gamma.
Yeah. yell at the guy in the projection booth. No, there's no one in the projection booth in them anymore. That's the problem. So yeah, the creepy murder kid may work in the novel, but doesn't really translate to film. Some of the gore is really cool, but it doesn't really amount to anything. I think the movie has to be more psychological.
Question the sister. The sort of the wife's sister, she dies, and that's a flashback thing that goes on throughout the film.
Zelda.
Is she meant to be evil, or is she meant to just be somewhat handicapped or disabled, and the sister just doesn't understand it?
I think she's supposed to represent Rachel's inner fears, and I mean, it depends how you view it, but it's like Zelda was sick.
Removing the subtext, she's also just an asshole.
Yes,
well,
there we
go. That's the thing.
I was like, well, if you weren't so mean, maybe you would feel alive.
She was sick. Rachel was forced to take care of her, even though she was too young, and Zelda resented
the fact that she had a spine.
Yeah, resented Rachel.
A working spine.
So the character wasn't supposed to be some sort of evil force. She was just meant to be like
she's just an asshole.
Yeah, but also because the supernatural force of the burial ground brings Zelda back as a hallucinatory visions to Rachel, then she becomes an evil force. Like, she's not physically there.
Yeah.
It's like a shining kind of thing. Like, she's coming at her. Like, it's her regret and memory. Now, here's the thing. That's in the novel. That's in the 89 version. That's in the new version. It could be weaved into the story better. It's probably more well explained in the novel. You can probably cut it out of the movie. Yeah. I know fans of the book would probably be angry, but I'm just like, these visions and stuff, they don't really add a lot. And especially because Rachel, the wife, doesn't really get a lot of development anyway, and then she dies. It's like, it's not really her story.
Yeah, it's
you know,
it
doesn't. There's elements, there's themes of regret and her blaming herself for her sister's death or whatever. But when there's all this other stuff going on with the dead kid, and it's like, it doesn't really add anything. You know what I mean?
I remember laughing at a particular scene when Dulcie moved to the country town. He says, we could both use it to slow down. We both need to slow down a bit. And I was like, but she's a housewife. Like, how much more can you slow down as a housewife? That's just me being mean, but it adds to the fact that she didn't have much going on as a character.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And they're probably moving to a bigger house, too.
Yeah, no.
He sends mixed messages to them. Let's slow down. He's more square.
It's slow down for him, but her, she gets more the work. No, yeah, because
we got all these acres. You got to start looking after them, honey.
Because he was like an ER doctor in the city or something.
And
so he's like,
that's understandable. With her, I was just like,
she's
they didn't
getting
give her anything to kind of.
They probably could have I think a lot of the problems of the 89 version and the 2019 version probably stem from the source material. Now, I haven't read the book. I don't know exactly, a lot more of it's probably explained, but I think a lot of the problems we have with the movie, especially the climax, probably just come from the novel. And that's why I think a really good adaptation would focus more on the psychological aspects, remove some of the supernatural aspects, including Pascal? Is that the kid's name?
Yeah.
Who follows Lewis, the dead kid who follows Lewis around and tries to warn him about the burial ground? That's never really well integrated in the movie in either version.
I felt like he was just there to provide, the words escaping me at the moment.
Yeah.
But just to tell people, like, the barrier's not meant to be thin, or the character's going in the wrong direction.
I feel like that can be
done better
explained, better weaved. At the end of the movie, he just disappears. Like, there's no
he doesn't do
resolution.
a lot.
Yeah. So I'm saying
his whole thing could be replaced by one vision sequence.
Exactly.
Like a dream.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm saying is the best adaptation of the novel would probably be one that strays further away from the source material.
Yeah.
So again, there are a lot of people who've probably read the novel who are getting angry right now, but I think the best possible version of a movie version of the novel changes more. And
definitely. I think it comes back
to distances itself.
You look I
think it comes back to what James said before, in that the film and books are very different in the way that they're presented to the audience and the reader.
It's like we're talking about with Cowboy Bebop even. Adaptations.
It's completely different. So the movie adaptation, as James said, really, ideally, it could take a lot less from the book to make a better viewing experience of the story as a whole.
If you look at a good comparison to make, while still on theme, is Stephen King's The Shining and how that was adapted by Kubrick. So they changed quite a lot from the book, but still maintained the essence of The Shining. So so what I mean by that is all the same characters are there.
Yeah.
The events happen in a slightly different way. The ending was changed to suit film at the time because the ending of the book is very cliche.
Yeah.
So they could take the cliches from the book and then put a spin on them.
That's also different because like The Shining is like Kubrick is the master.
But what I mean is someone took that and then changed elements.
He kind of remixed it in his own version. Whereas I'm saying, like, take a version and, like, build upon what was set up in the novel, but explore it in different ways. And, like I said, the movie has to be more psychological. I think it would benefit from being a longer, slower movie.
Yeah.
And that would probably, again, people probably wouldn't like that. But I think a longer, slower psychological drama would be really interesting. The best part of this movie, I think, is when Lewis brings his daughter Ellie back from the dead, and he's like so happy to see her, and he like gives her a bath, and they're
that's a really cool
he puts
scene.
her in bed. I'm like, this is really emotionally
that was
affecting, you know.
That was really cool because you also get a little bit tidbits from her saying like, "Where was I?" and like all that kind of stuff, and questioning death and what comes after.
Yeah, it's like this should probably happen early in the movie, and then the movie should continue with this. And it's like, how does a father deal with the death of his child and return of his child? And you see the look in Jason Clarke's face. It's like he starts to realize it's not the same anymore. He's like brushing her hair, and she's got like staples in the back of her head, and he's like, oh, I've done a bad thing. But at the end of the movie, he becomes a zombie. He doesn't have to live with that. He doesn't have to kill her up.
Question. The Wendigo brings him back assumedly, yeah? Or whatever the creature is.
It's
assumed. What the hell the Wendigo is going?
The Wendigo is just part of the overall supernatural event. I don't think he's directly tied to the...
Whatever supernatural force brings him back, where does he get his staple supplies?
I thought it was inferred.
That was from the funeral home.
I thought it was inferred.
But I was like,
no.
Postmortem process.
No. I thought it was inferred that it was the power of the Wendigo that brought them back. Like, you made a deal with the Wendigo.
Here's another thing. I don't know how that's set up in the novel. Maybe that's explained more. In the 89 version, Wendigo's not in it at all. You hear noises in the woods, but they never explain it. In this version, there's a couple of references to it, but that's it. Again, this movie needs to be longer, slower, explain more, weave things in.
You know what I think it needs? It needs the pacing of it. You know, like granted, I know that it. We had a complicated response to it, the recent It movie.
Yeah,
but it did take its time.
But that's also because it's two movies.
Yeah, it did take its time to reach tendrils out and explore things.
So I mean,
which this movie doesn't really.
Yeah, even it, I have problems with both versions. But yeah, again, like a longer, slower movie that ties in the supernatural elements. Some of the supernatural elements ties it in better. Gets rid of some of the other supernatural elements, focuses more on psychological drama, because then the end of the movie, I was just talking about the bath scene and the bed scene, and then like next scene is she's doing a creepy dance, and I'm just like, this is dumb. This made me laugh. I was like, this is dumb.
Death makes you dance angrily.
Yeah, and then she's like, and she's like smashing things, and then she kills everyone, and I'm like, this is dumb.
So is your theory radio appropriate, Callum?
Well, I felt, and Daniel also felt, some unwholesome vibes from Judd.
Okay, so allow me to elaborate, because I feel like Callum is approaching this from not the correct... I've heard this theory before. I heard it before earlier when you mentioned it in the radio real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You feel that because Judd has no children of his own, no one in his house, and he forms an attachment to Creed's children, and he goes to the lengths of bringing back the cat and the girl, that therefore Judd is a paedophile.
No, I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying I wouldn't let a lonely old man near my children if they were that age.
Look,
he was staring at them from his house as well.
Because he's a lonely old man.
I'm sorry, if you're staring at me from the second floor of your house out in this bush, I'm concerned.
I didn't get that vibe from either version of the movie.
Neither did I.
I think this definitely comes from Alum's own psyche. And Daniel as well, but that's
he's
definitely
like,
not in the movie.
No one's touched my heart
movie.
as like Ali has.
He's a lonely old man. He's a bit of a weirdo. Yeah, that's not. That's not got nothing to do with anything.
Hide your kids, hide your wife, man.
Judd's coming. But I think the movie has its own decent amount of atmosphere and sense of dread, but it devolves into more jump-scary action sort of slasher stuff. I think, when we were talking about Us a few weeks ago, we were talking about the validity of horror movies and how, just because it's a horror movie doesn't make it schlocky or doesn't mean we can't take it seriously. And I think a movie that deals with grief like this movie does just needs to be more psychological, more emotionally powerful, and not just about the scary, creepy stuff.
You look at the Babadook. Granted, I enjoyed it enough, but that dealt with grief as the primary motivating force.
Yeah, that's a scary movie.
I think a lot of the problem with horror movies is the ones that do well, unfortunately, set the sort of standard. Would you say? At the moment, most of the horror movies follow the same sort of template of jump scares. And
there's definitely a Conjuring, Annabelle. What's the other one? Insidious.
There's definitely a zeitgeist going on at the moment.
String, string going.
Yeah,
there's the ones that make the money at the moment. Unfortunately for us, are basically the ones that aren't really taking the genre anywhere.
Yeah.
So we have these good horror movies like Us.
No, Jordan Peele's making a difference.
Yeah, we have these good
He's saying that's an exception.
These are the exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
And Hereditary.
There's always a couple of exceptions to the rule, but unfortunately, horror movies get a bad name because 90% of the ones that make money follow the exact same formula.
But I'm saying Pet Sematary I enjoyed overall. I think it was pretty decent. It wasn't that scary. It was an okay thriller. It leans more towards the Insidious Conjuring stuff that we've already seen, and less towards the more slower, more dramatic, more interesting horror movies that maybe we should be getting.
It shouldn't be a surprise to us that the filmmakers and the studios themselves push quite hard towards the formula that works.
Yeah.
And that's something that they need to break away from.
Yeah.
Because we're not, no one in this studio is particularly impressed by the same horror movie.
Yeah, they're all the same.
They're all pretty much like, I enjoy them. Yeah. They're good for what they're worth, but they're all the same.
Yeah. Look, we're out of time, but there is a few more points that I would like to get to. So I think what we'll do, we'll stop the live portion of the show, and we'll just do a quick 10-15 minutes to wrap up the review, because I feel like a lot of the time we stop the show right as we get going, and I've still got quite a few notes left. So we won't sign off. We'll just say thanks for listening, and definitely download the podcast if you're listening live to get the full show and the full review.
And up next is Matty J with Car Talk.
So we were talking about Pet Sematary.
Yes, we're back, and we're talking about what was my last point? I can't remember what my last point was. But
adaptations and how they all have faults, probably with the source material.
Yeah,
so they need to stray further away from the source material.
And also like Us and like horror movies that are taken more seriously and do more interesting things than just your typical jump scares and stuff.
I'm generalizing here, but there's two types of horror movies.
Yeah.
Ones that do very well at the box office and ones that are critically acclaimed.
There's
crossover.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
with Jordan Peele's movies.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the sort of serious horror movies, honestly, they don't make that much money comparatively.
Not really.
With your blockbuster horror films.
That's true, yeah.
And it's a problem with I think I was saying before on the live portion of the show, it's a problem with the industry because we're not going to see that much growth in the horror genre when it's still the same shit over and over again.
Definitely.
There's no growth there.
Well, hopefully with streaming and, and movies like Hereditary and Us doing well.
It did pretty well. And I know that's a TV show and it's a bit different. But that provided scares that weren't always jump scares. It did utilize the jump scare.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is because now we have the streaming services making these things. Hopefully, we'll see more like psychological horror and less jump scary.
It's also going to be interesting.
Less crowd pleasing.
While
horror.
On the Stephen King theme, it's going to be interesting how they approach the horror elements of Dr. Sleep.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Because as someone who's read the book, I can't really see how they can maintain a jump scare.
Yeah.
Without changing the narrative.
Yeah.
Because you do read portions of the book through the perspective of the bad guys.
Yeah.
They're just basically killers.
Yeah.
It's not like there's no kind of like boo moment as such.
Well, Mike Flanagan, who did Haunting of Hill House, is doing Dr. Sleep. So it's like we're hopefully in for something really, really good. And
he's talented.
Yeah. He also did Gerald's Game, which is another Stephen King adaptation, which I thought was pretty good. So... yeah, like I think hopefully that's as good as it promises to be.
Yeah.
So there's two things I want to talk about. One is a Stephen King connection and one is about Ellie, the daughter character. But before that, I want to quickly go through my notes and make sure we got to everything.
While you're reading that, I should say that one thing I thought they could do with Pet Sematary is incorporate some of the old school body horror elements. Like I was saying to Nathan in between the live show and this recording, that it'd be cool if a major part of the narrative is Creed trying to physically keep his daughter together. as her body deteriorates, maybe the magic that brings her back doesn't keep her body from decomposing.
Well, that's actually what I wanted to talk about Ellie, is like when she comes back, she has that kind of weird droopy eye, and I thought that was really cool. I'm like, she's kind of the same, but not really.
Yeah.
But also, she got hit by a truck. Like, she would be pretty messed up.
There's only so much you can do.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you're in this weird area of like, do you go full melted zombie, or do you try to make her look like herself so there's some semblance of maybe they can restart the family?
Yeah, see.
It's kind of in the middle. I kind of would like them to have gone more gruesome.
Me too, yeah.
And then that way it's like he keeps trying to make it work.
It's a physical reminder that what you did is
with
wrong.
a monster, you know?
Yeah. Like, you can start it off where she looks okay, but over the period of the movie, she starts to deteriorate. So
she starts decomposing.
And as the threat level gets higher, her body kind of...
That would be interesting.
...decomposes more and more.
Yeah.
She starts out normal, and then she gets evil and progressively physically worse over the course of the film.
That probably would have been better as well.
Until she's a skeleton.
She's like a walking sort of sludge zombie.
Or maybe just like flesh on bone, you know what I mean?
Just like flesh peeling off.
That'd be cool.
That would have been interesting too. It's like, what if you bring someone back, they look completely normal, they're happy, but the longer they live in the live world, the more crazy they get, the more, and like they slowly deteriorate.
Yeah, because it's mentioned in the movie, like the barrier shouldn't be broken between living and
that
the
would be
dead.
an interesting
and it's like
thing.
The repercussions of that are like she gets worse the longer she shouldn't be there.
That would be an interesting thing to explore, especially with the cat and the first part of the movie. If the cat came back, it's perfect, and you're like, great, and then it starts acting out, and they're like, why is the cat doing that? The cat never does that, and then it gets worse and worse and worse.
See, this is wasted ideas.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm saying. Is like,
it's obvious to us in this, but I mean, we have this conversation every week.
But it's like you can understand them wanting to stay true to the novel. You can understand them wanting to make differences from the '89 version.
Yeah.
But the best version of this movie is one that's
more original.
Goes in its own direction. Which again, like I keep saying, people would get angry at because they want it to, take.
I mean, I feel like the whole message of tonight's episode is that you're never going to win.
Look, like as someone who, if you've listened to the show, appreciates a good source material and doesn't like it when people stray, I always say it's fine as long as the essence remains.
That's true. I think definitely, even going in a different direction with this movie, as long as you keep that core grief theme and you keep that the resurrection theme, like I think
it's fine.
That's what's really important.
Yeah,
and that's what I think Stephen King.
He would appreciate that, I'm sure.
I hope so. Yeah, he
seems to. Well, to be perfectly honest, he was happy about The Dark Tower. And that was a mess.
You can't trust Stephen King.
That movie with that was so terrible.
You can't trust Stephen King in terms of movies and television.
Yeah.
You can't trust his taste.
The amount of things he greenlights.
Especially because it's like, how much is he getting paid? Like, obviously he doesn't want to shit talk his own.
Not that, but he's fabulously wealthy.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's about money. He just likes seeing his creations on the big screen. And he's like a proud
Unless Kubrick did it. And then he gets mad.
He's made his peace. I'm pretty sure he's made his peace with it.
Has he?
I'm pretty sure, but it's also important to remember that while as good as The Shining is, Kubrick radically changed the story.
But that's what I was. No, but when you brought it up before,
he changed, he removed entire sections of characterization.
Yeah. But that's what I was saying.
But it worked for the film.
When you brought it up, before, I think that's a different comparison. Whereas The Shining is a great movie, it's very different from the novel, and Stephen King didn't like that.
But you know what Stephen King did like?
What?
Getting fucking paid.
Yeah, that's true. But
the man can't complain about the Shining movie.
Yeah.
When even the royalties today will probably be far in excess of anything that we would earn in a year.
But so there's that case where the movie is radically different from the book, but is an amazing movie, masterpiece.
So
then there's our version of Pet Sematary, which doesn't exist, which is further away from the original Pet Sematary novel, but keeps its sort of core characterization and themes and elements. So I think that's why when you brought it up before, I was like, no, I think that's a different sort of thing.
True. I mean, because The Shining could be seen as a bad adaptation.
Yeah.
But a wonderful
It's a great movie, yeah. And then that's another thing as well, is like when we're talking about Cowboy Bebop, it's like it doesn't have to be exactly the same as the source material as long as it's still good.
As long as the spirit's there.
Yeah.
It's like Star Trek Discovery is technically a reboot of Star Trek, but it's a bad Star Trek show.
Yeah. And that's why the Orville, which we talk about consistently on this show, is the best Star Trek show on the TV.
Oh man, don't get me started about the Orville. Last episode was amazing.
I just finished the last episode I watched was the Mocklin one with the
dancing? How good was the dancing?
The planet of Lady Mocklins.
Oh, you haven't watched the dancing yet.
The dancing is amazing.
The Mocklins are a race of bad motherfuckers, and I don't like them.
That episode was really, really good. That's when I messaged you guys, and I said, I think this is like one of the best episodes.
It is. I know this is off topic, but man, the Mocklins are not cool people, generally.
Keeping on the Orville for 2 seconds, James, I kind of disagree with you. I didn't particularly like the last episode. I'm not judging it yet because it's a two-parter, and we've just seen the first part.
Well, that's what I like about it, is the ending, even if they never address that again, that's a really interesting ending.
The ending is the ending's very intriguing. It's very interesting. But for the most part, I didn't enjoy that episode that much.
Oh, really? I thought I liked there was a Kelly-centric episode, which I don't think we've never had before.
Interesting.
And the ending, even if they never address it again, I think is an extremely interesting thought experiment. Yeah. But if it does tie into next week's finale,
I mean, considering it's part 1 and part 2, it's gonna play on.
So it's like, that's what I'm saying. Is like the ending on itself is great. The ending as part of a ongoing saga is amazing.
I will reserve my judgment, and I will let you know my thoughts next Tuesday.
Well, next Tuesday. We won't talk about it, but Tuesday after, but anyway, let's
talk about it.
Let's get back to Pet Sematary.
I'm sorry
because I'm going to have to edit all this shit.
I'm sorry about that.
So let me just quickly go through my notes that I didn't get to. I like this switcheroo of killing off Ellie instead of Gage.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't expecting it to happen, and you see Gage run across the road as the truck is coming.
Fake out.
And I've seen the 89 version, so I was like, they're going to do the same thing again. And then fake out, Ellie dies instead. They also do a couple other references to the 89 movie, like the Achilles tendon stab. And then they do a quick fake out. I thought that was good. Did you guys like the cat?
I did.
Yeah, it was okay.
Oh, I see a cat. I approve.
You guys like cats. I don't like cats, but I like the cat performer. The performance of the cat.
It wasn't a CG cat?
He or she
I think
was a good boy or girl.
Yeah, there were a couple of bits where the cat looked a bit fake. But overall, it looked like a real cat, and it looked pretty good.
I think in most of the scenes it was a real cat.
I like the 89 version where he has like glowing yellow eyes, and they don't really do that in this version. I think they could have maybe done that. I don't know. Then again, then you start getting
more
samey.
realistic zombies.
You start getting samey, and you start being like, well, why are they making another version if they're just going to do the same as the old version? And then you get into that problem. We talked about the dark green screen crap. Some of wobbly cam a little, not shaky cam, wobbly cam. Whereas a couple of times I was like, why are they wobbling the camera? This is unnecessary. Like dialogue scenes and stuff.
The director's having a chuckle.
Talked about that. Yeah, wobble. Yeah, so I liked when Ellie comes back, she has that kind of droopy eye. But yeah, whether it needed to be more gruesome, not sure. So the truck driver, I thought it was really dumb how he was looking on his old ass flip phone.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, why is that in the movie? He's already going fast. He's already on a small road.
Should have been a Stephen King cameo.
Or that would have been cool. But it's like, why add the crappy flip phone? Like, he's already going too fast on a small road. He's already setting himself up for an accident. Like, I cutting to that awkward shot of him with his old ass flip phone. It wasn't necessary. That's a nitpick, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I agree.
Yeah, Pascal gets lost in the story. I think they need to weave that in better. That was a problem with the 89 version. Probably is more explained in the novel.
Just remove him from the film. Like I said, replace it with a dream sequence.
Yeah, I think I liked Lewis's quote-unquote visions in this movie more than the 89 version. In the 89 version, all that supernatural stuff doesn't make any sense. In this version, it's kind of like, well, they're near the Pet Sematary. It's giving them dreams. It's giving them
emanating longer.
Yeah, so it's like, I think that worked better in this version. But it's still something that needs to be woven better into the story, explained more, or pushed more away.
The side,
in the novel, it's more explicitly explained that Ellie, like they have visions, but that Ellie might have the Shining.
Ah.
So in this version, they don't really, and in the 89 version, they don't really explain that a lot. Ellie has dreams in the 89 version, but it's like, I think it would be more interesting if they were going to introduce the supernatural element, maybe have more of like, they're a family of people who have the Shining.
That's cool.
And they happen to move to a place where the supernatural force...
The barrier is thin.
Is so thin that they all have like nightmares, and they all have visions.
The Overlook Hotel. It's kind of gives off this vibe.
Yeah, it's like this beacon of
bad juju.
Yeah, so it's like, that would be more interesting if they explored that. How it's like, movies family to a small place, but then it's like, our power that we have that we don't know we have is now triggered.
Yeah.
That's
a cool idea.
That would be interesting to explore. And then I think I was talking about before, like all the, when it should be going more psychological, and then like, no, we're going to go more jump scary kind of bullshit. And there's those kids with the masks, marching towards them. I'm like, this is not scary. This is dumb.
But that's like a symptom with the industry.
Yeah,
as a
like
whole.
That crap you can cut all out, especially at the end of the movie when Ellie is wearing one of these masks attacking.
Would have been cooler if it was a shining vision. Like again, you could way you can play with it, so it's not just kids. It could be something a little more scarier, just marching past. And the reason she doesn't say anything is because they're kind of ephemeral.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah. Also, like, I think there might be some deleted scenes that explain it more, because there's this. When Ellie dies and Lewis is having like a montage memory of all his moments with her, there's a moment where he's in, I think it's the basement, or she's got like a little hiding place, like a little nook with a curtain in front of it that she's in. And you only see it in that flashback scene. Then when she comes back from the dead, he goes looking for her when she wanders off, and he goes straight to that hiding place and pulls the curtain back, and there's a creepy kid's mask there. Like is it a rabbit or...
I think it's a rabbit.
Something like that.
It's supposed to be a rabbit or a hare, like something like that. Yeah.
And he sees, and I'm like, I feel like there was a deleted scene there that explained that was her little hiding spot that she made for herself. Maybe she made the mask. Maybe she got it from one of the other creepy kids. I don't know. But
I think you're right. It feels like some cut content.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. It's a nitpick, but it also ties into my point of, you can explore a lot of these things and make a more dark, more interesting movie.
Just make a slower film.
Yeah, just slow it down.
Let the world
and this
unravel.
Movie, this movie is not super fast paced or cutting all over the place. Like, it's just because of what it deals with, it needs to, I think, slow it down.
Definitely
be more
needs
psychological.
a better script.
Yeah. Like Lewis's motivations for bringing the cat back. It's like, he wants to keep his daughter happy. He doesn't know what's going to happen. Judd kind of tricks him, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But then when he brings Ellie back, he knows what's going to happen. Like, they need to explain that motivation more. They need to explain Judd's reasoning more. And I think that's why bringing Norma in, his dead wife, and showing him going again, it needs to be. Deal with the grief more, deal with the psychological damage more.
I know that the whole thing about them having to journey to the pets, the place where you bury the dead.
Yeah.
It's like this long, kind of, not long, but it's a bit of a difficult journey.
Yeah.
I also think that maybe for this film, it shouldn't have been such an arduous journey.
Yeah.
Especially if you're just going all this way to bury a cat.
I was thinking, like,
maybe make a barrier, but not something that's like going to take you ages to get across.
Yeah, I was thinking...
It's like a Lord of the Rings-esque journey to get to the cemetery.
Like, I don't care how much he trusts Judd, who he's just met not too long ago. It's like, Lewis, at some point, he'd just like, screw this cat and just throw it off the cliff and go home. Like, they need to explain that more. Like, they need to explain that need to... Like, there needs to be a need to bury that.
I know the wife in this movie has issues with death.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where you need to be like, the cat's... I'm not going to bring the cat back to life.
Yeah.
How about we just get a new kitten? It's a part of every kid's growing up experience life.
Yeah.
Your pet passes away. It's sad. You get a new pet and you move on.
Well, that's another thing is, like, one of the reasons you get kids pets is so they can learn about death, right?
Kinda.
I mean,
as well as companion, all the other pet stuff.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it's like the cat dies, Lewis brings it back, so Ellie doesn't have that lesson, and she questions Lewis about death and where people go and so on. The movie needs to be all about that.
Yeah.
The repercussions of bringing back a dead loved one. The scary zombie slasher stuff, that's boring. You know, the psychological effects.
That's where all the good stuff is.
That's where all the meat is. Yeah, so like we were saying before, like I think the best version of a Pet Sematary movie would be one that kind of goes in its own direction but keeps those core...
Yeah, some body horror elements.
Yeah.
So there's a physical cost to bringing back the dead. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not just like Ellie walking around, like looking fine with some staples, maybe.
Yeah.
Skin's a bit grey, whatever.
Yeah.
You need to see stuff change.
Yeah. But yeah,
physically as well as mentally.
Yeah, and it deals more with those grief themes and learning about death and so on. So I feel like I hate when they remake some, like I hate them, but readaptations of an original source novel, I can understand more because you want to sort of perhaps do it differently, do it more justice. But readaptations often end up just being remakes of the original movie, which is what I hate, especially when people try to defend them by saying, well, this is not a remake, it's just a readaptation of the book, when it's clearly a remake, especially in terms of financial, cash grabby, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're doing it for brand recognition. They're not doing it because it's like, we have to get the Pet Sematary adaptation right. They're doing it, but I think in this case, this is less of a cash grabby...
Like The Hobbit was not necessarily an adaptation of The Hobbit.
Well, that's a different because there was... Yeah. But anyway...
No, but you can tell Pet Sematary, you can tell that they did put work and effort into this.
That's what I'm saying. This is not just a remake of the 89 version. It's like they tried to make their own movie, to make an adaptation of the original novel. But I think I would like to see this movie made again in another 20, 30 years' time.
Yeah.
This came out 30 years after the 89
with a more
version.
esteemed director, perhaps?
Whatever. Like, just someone...
Especially with movies, as you said, it's movies with lessons.
Yeah.
Like, the movie has something... It has a moral lesson that people should learn.
A coda.
Yeah.
And especially movies also, like movies with this are movies that have like... Context is also important.
Yeah.
So a movie like this... remaking it every 20, 30 years is probably not a bad thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are some movie adaptations that are the definitive version. I think like Shawshank Redemption or even Misery. In 1,000 years, you'll never get a better adaptation.
Oh, no, definitely.
No one is going to remake The Shining. Like that's that's out of bounds.
Yeah.
Can you imagine any director being like, I want to be the guy
There was the Stephen King miniseries, which was terrible, and which he wanted to make it closer to his book, but he didn't have the...
I've never seen that one.
It's not good. But anyway, my point is, there are some movie adaptations of books that are the definitive versions, that in 1,000 years there will never be a version as good as the one that we've already got. Now, there are some other cases where perhaps we haven't reached that one great definitive version. And I think Pet Sematary, I would like to see another version in the future.
That's fair.
Now, most of the ideas that we have about Pet Sematary, no one's ever cares about them or is ever going to think about them or whatever. But it's like, in my perfect world, there would be another adaptation in the future that deals with a lot of things that we want it to deal with and does a lot of things that we want it to do.
You know, the thing about some of these Stephen King classics that people make into movies is that Stephen King, in his own way, was very much a trailblazer of the horror genre. So things like Carrie, for example, if we take Carrie, he pretty much defined... When you think of a girl going crazy in high school and using what's essentially psychic powers to kill people... You think of Carrie. Like, no one can make a movie like that and the reaction would never be, hey, you're not just ripping off Carrie.
Yeah.
So I think that the thing about, like, Pet Sematary, for example, is when we think of the themes of Pet Sematary, that's very King. It's very Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
You can't... If you make a movie like that, you're not going to it's not going to just. You're going to have to answer to.
Yeah,
the work that has
you
come
can't make an
before.
original movie called Cat Death,
Yeah,
whatever,
exactly.
and
So-
that deals with all the same things. But yeah,
I think that's what makes making a King movie so interesting, is because a lot of these films have definite themes which he pretty much defined.
yeah,
So that's like making like a King movie is risky because whilst you can make an original film, you're also bound by his themes in the sense that also the characterization, like if you go too far away, people might criticize it.
I
Like,
mean,
at what point does it stop being a Stephen King movie and you just become derivative?
Here's the thing: is we're back to the Shining argument. You can make a great movie based on a book without being loyal to the book. You can also make a great movie based on a book that's like a word-for-word adaptation.
Yeah.
You can also make a great adaptation that is very close to the source material. It all just depends on the movie. If it's a good movie, it's a good movie. It doesn't matter where it comes from. So, like everything we've been talking about tonight with Cowboy Bebop and Pet Sematary, adaptations are just hard.
Yeah, very hard.
Especially if there have been previous adaptations. So, yeah. I think that's it. You guys want to mention anything else?
I think we covered all the bases.
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd go for 90 minutes.
Yeah, well, here's the thing.
So the show's not going to last 90 minutes after editing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll probably cut about 10 minutes out, but still, it'll be a long episode.
No, but we weren't. It wasn't stressed. It wasn't as rushed.
Yeah,
it was fine.
Tonight
it was
we were
organic.
Tonight we were planning just the hour, but I think from now on we just need that extra time because
that extra 20 minutes.
it's like when I see a movie, I want to talk about it. I want to discuss every aspect of it. I want to explore all the possibilities, and just that hour is not enough. And those live restrictions are just suffocating. So
and I feel like it's a more relaxed show most of the time.
Definitely, yeah. So I think from now on, if not the 2 hours, we'll at least do,
as much as we need to get through the content.
Yeah, exactly. But next week,
oh Lord, it's going to be a big chunky one.
Just a heads up for our listeners. Next week is our Avengers Endgame review.
Also James's birthday,
and it also happens to be on my birthday. So we're planning at least a 2.5, possibly 3 hour, mega super duper awesome
a big
episode.
super one that's not about Star Wars. Be shocked.
Yes.
And it'll probably be positive.
This time it'll actually be about positive things. So, so just a heads up about that. I'm hoping to still have it edited and released as the podcast on Wednesday. But because it's so long, it might take me till Thursday. So this is a heads up.
Oh yeah, because you're seeing it tonight, aren't you?
No. So I'm seeing the movie tomorrow night, which is Wednesday the 24th. The Tuesday review will be recorded on April 30th, which is my birthday, and then the podcast is released on May 1st, which is Wednesday. Which is I always try to release the podcast on Wednesday. But because it's such a big episode and because there's going to be so much editing involved, it might be released on Thursday the 2nd.
Okay.
I think I have those dates right. So this is just a warning, not a warning. I'm just letting listeners know that
expect a big one.
Expect a massive one, but also...
It's not a warning, it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, but you know what I mean. But also, the podcast release might be delayed. So if you don't see the podcast in your feed on Wednesday, it's coming. Don't worry.
I'm sure we'll let people know on the socials. We'll possibly tweet or Facebook. Say, look, the episode might be a day late.
Or hated it.
But anyway, so next week is that super duper mega endgame episode. Callum, I think your turn to sign off.
Like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter at Tuesday Review AU, and rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. You can find our previous episodes on all your favorite podcasting apps.
Yeah, follow me on Instagram at Channel Drifter.
Check out the Car Talk and Sunrise Arcade podcasts.
Yeah.
They're good material.
Check them out.
Big week next week. Adios, cousins.